Buenas noches, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone for being here tonight on a Wednesday night before the 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to everyone. I'd like to first start off with Christian Rodriguez from the Ironworkers Local 808, which is hosting us in this beautiful hall here. Christian.
Thank you.
I'm not the best public speaker, but my name is Christian Rodriguez, one of the organizers here at Local 808 Ironworkers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome. This is our lovely hall that we are very proud of. We are a trade of ironworkers, so we do everything about iron. Skyscrapers, especially here in Florida. We do all the Universal Studios, Disney, as well as Kennedy Space Center. So welcome. We do appreciate you guys being here.
Big round of applause for Christian and for the Ironworkers Local 808. Well, as you know, tonight we have a very interesting debate. We have one of our candidates here. My name is Marcos Villar, and I'm the founder and executive director of Alianza for Progress. Alianza for Progress seeks to unite Puerto Rican and Hispanic populations in Florida and develop leaders from within the community that will support progress here in Central Florida. Our commitment is to establishing genuine relationships with the Puerto Rican and Latino community, its leaders, and its allies. Drive us every day to ensure that we change the current system that disproportionately benefits powerful interests and not our working community. Our grassroots efforts with the Hispanic civic and political participation is unique and brings our unique unique culture and traditions to build a long-lasting power base to fight economic, social, and environmental justice for all. We welcome you all tonight. We're very proud to be here. We have our current State Representative Rita Harris from District 44, and maybe at some point we'll have the challenger, former State Representative Daisy Morales, who confirmed that she would be here tonight, but has not called us to inform us, that she was going to be late or anything. So we're holding her seat right here. Hopefully she'll get here and be able to participate in the conversation as well. I will be moderating this meeting today. I want to start off by inviting Representative Rita Harris to say an opening statement about her campaign, why she's running for re-election, and just give us some introductory words for the evening.
Thank you so much, Marcos. First of all, I want to thank Alianza for this opportunity to engage with the community and allow you all to get to know more about me and my platform for re-election. Also, I want to thank the Ironworkers. Every time I reach out to them and say, hey, we need a space, they're always so willing to lend a hand. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. My name is Representative Rita Harris. I am proud to serve House District 44. I serve in the Florida House up in Tallahassee, and we are in District 44 right now. So if you don't live here, welcome to the district. Many of you know that I got my start at Planned Parenthood when I was a teenager. I was a theater kid, and I auditioned for a group called Positive Force Players. And essentially what we did is we wrote skits about some of the issues that we were facing at the time. And then we would go and perform these skits. And that's sort of where I feel like I learned so much about advocacy and caring for other people. I met my husband, my wonderful husband, when I was young. I was 21 years old, I think. You didn't believe me. I had to show you my driver's license. I had a baby face back then. And I had my daughter. And I took some time to raise my family. It was really important to me to build that kind of relationship with my daughter. But when she got older and she started to spread her wings and live her own life, I decided, I wanted to get out and do something too. So I helped other people get elected. I helped other good candidates get elected, knock doors. I joined the DDEC under the leadership of Chair Hodge at the time, and got super involved. And so when redistricting happened and this seat opened up and there was an opportunity to run, I, of course, like most women, asked a friend if they would do it. And after asking a few friends if they would do it, and getting no, I won't, or no, I can't, I said, well, you know what? Like a woman, I'm just going to do it myself. So I ran. I feel like this is a very special community. I've lived here for 22 years. It's incredibly diverse. I think over 100 languages are spoken in Central Florida right now. And I would say probably all of them are definitely spoken in District 44. And so I really want to give this community someone who's accessible, someone that you can reach out to, someone that, they feel like will get the job done for them. And I'm very honored that I've been able to do this once, and I hope to be able to go back and do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Harris. Before we move forward, I want to say a few of the rules for tonight. First of all, we are streaming this live on YouTube and Facebook on Alianza's, social media accounts. So this will be recorded. It will remain, is being recorded live, but it will remain as a record. And we want to make sure that the candidates know that everything that they say here, we want them to speak the truth. We want them to be factual and truthful. And everything that is said here, we hold the privilege of fact checking it. And if there's something that we find out that is not factual, don't be surprised if we will make a little note further down the week or maybe in a few weeks with the segment that is not truthful, and an explanation of why that statement is not truthful. So we will be doing that with all of the candidates that participate in our forums throughout the year. Last week we had our first forum. It was House District 47. We had 4 candidates, 3 Democrats and a Republican. All of them showed up. And tonight we have a different situation because there's no Republicans running in this for this seat. Only 2 Democrats.
Yeah.
A lot has been said, right, about I heard that in Florida, every single seat, there's a Democrat running for that seat.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, like this seat in particular, Carlos Smith won re-election. There's a few other elected officials who already officially won because they didn't have any candidates running against them. But here tonight we have 2 Democrats running, and somewhere. Someone asked where. I have to say, okay, somewhere we have 2 candidates running in this race. One of them is here tonight, thankfully, so we're grateful for that. We wish we would have had both candidates, and maybe she'll come forth at some point in the evening. We welcome her, if she does, obviously. But I wanted to ask Rita first to talk a little bit about this, because our community may not know. Not everybody in our community knows the rules of how elections work, right? And part of the process of us having these conversations is to inform people about how the electoral process works. And when there isn't somebody from the other party running, I understand, right?
Yeah.
And Rita, you explain it, but as I understand it, if I get it wrong, you let me know. But from what I understand is there's 2 people from the same party and there's no one from the other party running, then it's called an open primary.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yes.
So Rita, explain to us a little bit about how that works so that people who are here and people who are back home understand how that works.
Sure. So as Marco said, we are a closed primary state. So normally if there are people from different parties in the primary, you have to be registered with that party to vote for that candidate. So if you're a Democrat, in order to vote in the Democratic primary, you have to be registered a Democrat. And also if you're Republican, same. When there are 2 people from the same party, it's considered an open primary, which is like a general election. And so therefore it opens up for anybody to vote. So Democrats can vote in this primary, NPAs can vote, independents, Republicans, Green Party, no matter what your party affiliation is, you're allowed to vote because it's considered now a general election. And it does change the dynamics as you run your race. You do have to expand your universe and target people outside of just their Democratic voting base.
Any questions about that from the public? So anybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, which is not normally the case, can actually vote in this campaign, in this race, come August, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, I will say though that the district is very, very blue. During 2022, when we had historically low turnout, it still voted for Charlie Crist. I think it was +5, which is amazing because at the time there was very low turnout. So it's a third NPA, a third Democrat, and a third Republican. But the NPAs overwhelmingly fall along with the Democrats. So it's a very blue area, which I think is why there are 2 Democrats running and no Republicans, especially in a year like this.
So before we get into the meat of the conversation tonight, I want to remind everyone that Alianza, every first Friday of every month, has our First Friday events. And this Friday coming up is our first Friday of July. And it's also 4th of July. So we know a lot of people might be traveling, might be going to the beach and all of that. But for those of you who are still, in the area, we are having a picnic. Alianza is having a picnic. And we're going to be meeting at Chisholm Regional Park, Ralph Chisholm Regional Park, which is located at 4700 Chisholm Park Trail, and that's in St. Cloud. And we invite anyone who wants to show up. If you're really, really hungry, we're gonna have some food, some hot dogs, some hamburgers, and so forth. But if you're really, really hungry, bring some extra hot dogs and some extra hamburgers, just so to make sure. Because sometimes people just crowd our events, and then we'll run out of hot dogs and hamburgers. But everyone is invited, and we hope everybody can come and join with us. We're gonna have some games, and we'll be relaxed. It's an early evening. This first Friday is gonna be from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. and we'd love to see everyone show up. So with that, I'd like to first of all also thank our staff, if you could please, those of you who are here tonight, please stand up and be recognized for the great work that you do. Thank you, Jerry, Diana, Carla, Jose, Joanna, and Henry back here in the controls. So we wouldn't be able to do these without them, and we're really proud of the work that we do and the work that they do. So we're gonna get started. And one last thing, I almost forgot. I wanna say hello to Carmen Torres, who is running for the Senate seat 25. And to Wes Hodge, who's here tonight. Where's Wes? Where did Wes go?
He's here somewhere.
Well, maybe he stepped out to take a call. You know how donors are, right? You have to attend to them immediately. Sure. But Wes Hodge was here earlier, and he probably is gonna probably had to step out for a call or something. But Wes is running for supervisor of elections in Orange County. So we're very honored to have both of you here tonight. Thank you for coming. And all of you who are in the audience, faces that I know, others that I don't know. We talk a lot about the Latino community here, but we are very much aware and happy that we're not just Latinos. We live surrounded by other people from other nationalities, people from here, from Florida, that were here before us, people that are African American that were here before us. So we're very, very thankful to see some of our Anglo and Black friends here with us tonight. And you're part of the family. We're all neighbors, and we are all go to the same schools, vote for the same leaders, and participate together and make this city and this county the great county and the great city that it is. So thank you all for being here tonight, regardless of what corner of the world you come from. So let's get started. And the first thing that I want to talk about is something that is in the voters' mind. In almost every poll that you see, every conversation that you have out there in the community, the economic situation is the big thing. And specifically among economic, factors, housing. The cost of housing has gone up, the taxes have gone up, the insurance has skyrocketed, and of all the expenses that have gone up, I would say that is the one big hit that hits every single family across this region and across the country. It's not just an American problem, it's happening all over the world, right? But it's especially hard here in Florida. So, Rita, what would you say, and what are your ideas on how we can improve that situation and rein in the rising cost of housing and homelessness as well?
Yes, and what you said is true. It is an issue all over the world. In fact, in the United States, as difficult as it is, we are experiencing it a lot less than some other countries. But Florida is experiencing it, I would say, worse than some other states, and that is because, unfortunately, in our budget, there's a hoarding of some federal funds that don't get used to help a lot of working families, and unfortunately, it has an impact. We were able to fund. We have started to fund the Sadowski Fund again and put money into it, but it's going to take time to see that actually, matriculate and start to help people. But the insurance issue is a factor in why rent is going up. My own husband and I, our insurance went up 3 times since I've been elected. And so you have to think, if you own a home and you're renting it, even if you're just owning a one home and you're renting out to somebody, if your insurance goes up $560 a month, you're going to pass that along to the renters. So we have to do something to get the insurance under control. There were 17 bills filed last session that dealt with insurance, and none of them got heard. And they were some really good ideas from a bill that I filed that would help create a council of experts to help navigate us through this, because we're always told, listen to the experts, to people like a bipartisan bill. I think it was Rep. Cassell and Representative Roach that did a bipartisan bill about wind mitigation. But they weren't heard. And so part of being able to move some really good policy forward is making sure that we elect people that have a will to move policy forward. Because the way our legislature is set up is that we are 36 out of 120. And so we file a bill, it doesn't get heard unless they want to hear it. And if they don't want to hear it, then it doesn't get heard. But I think that there's a lot of things that we can do if we can get into a space where we have a little bit of the ability to negotiate. Weatherization. I think the My Safe Florida Home program just opened up on the 1st. I sent out an email to show people how to get into the portal, how to apply for it. It is income driven. So if the funds open up to people over 65 who are in the most financial need, these programs are good programs because they do help harden your homes against storms, which therefore, insurance companies are going to be a little bit more likely to say, okay, this is a house that we can insure, especially older homes. A lot of people with older homes are having a hard time insuring their homes because of the age. So I think it's a problem that's going to have a lot of solutions. But I think that we're starting and we're trying. And my hope is that next session we will have a bigger team and we'll be able to kind of, move this forward a little bit.
And what could organizations like Alianza do to help you in the state house, or to get more assistance and more programs for homeowners or potential homeowners, right? Or for affordable housing?
I think Alianza has been doing a great job. I think, first of all, just engaging the community. I go to a lot of your First Fridays, and there are large groups of people that go. And so when you bring people in for community and fun, they don't feel like they're being lectured or told, all right, now go out and do work. They're just becoming part of a community, and now they're invested, and now they want to find out ways to make it better. You were up in Tallahassee a lot. Alianza was up in Tallahassee a lot. That's really important, talking to all of the representatives, even the ones you think, they don't care, they're not going to listen to me. You at least should go into their office and try to have a visit with them. It's important that they hear from our whole entire state what is important to the voters.
So we're going to be going through different issues, and we're talking about housing right now. If there's a question in the public around housing that anyone would like to raise, this would be a good moment. Yes?
So, thanks for showing up, Rita. That's what we like to know. So my first question is, I'm big on homelessness, and I know that there's not like a budget for homeless people. Is there something that it's being in the works, some ideas, something we can do as a community?
Yeah, unfortunately, in fact, last session they passed a bill that essentially criminalizes being homeless. and gives the counties no financial resources. They expect the counties to build a quote unquote encampment, but they give these counties no financial resources to build these encampments. So it's really going to be about helping connect local organizations to some of our federal partners, maybe to try to pull down federal funds. And I know that Congressman Frost and Congressman Soto have been incredibly helpful in trying to do that. But I think in the interim, that's what we're going to have to do, because the state is showing that there's no desire to help people. And especially considering that we just came out of COVID, homelessness is at an all-time high. Working families are unfortunately homeless too. These are people with children and pets, and they're doing their best to live paycheck to paycheck. So that is something that we're working on, is trying to connect these nonprofits and these organizations that are wanting to do the work with some federal funding sources that might be able to help them in the form of grants.
Okay, so in the district, how do you see, is it more, is it less?
It is more, a little bit more in my district. I have seen it a little bit more. We've seen people in the woods, encampments in the woods behind stores where there's wooded areas where we normally did not see. I think a lot of the people here are residents of the district, and I think they can speak to that as well. What I think a lot of us see are more families, and I think that's the most troubling part of it. Homelessness in and of itself, there's so many causes to homelessness, from mental illness to self-medicating, which is sometimes a way to deal with mental illness. But I think we are seeing more families that are in situations where they're housing insecure or they're going from place to place. And so that is something that we're trying to kind of get around. And there's a lot of ways to solve it, a lot of ways that we could solve it. But unfortunately, like I said, and I'm not trying to make an excuse, it is what we're facing right now. And we're doing our best with what we have, but we're really hoping that we have some more people in November.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so the next set of questions is going to be around resilience, climate change, and sustainability. And again, if there's any questions from the audience, you can ask the questions once we've addressed our question. Everyone will have a chance to ask a question. And if there's any other question, oops.
Oh, I thought that was me. It wasn't me.
I'm sorry.
Time to get up.
I thought it was a doorbell. The questions, the question period is, we ask the questions, and then there's follow-up questions from the crowd like we just did right now. That's perfect. And then at the end, if there's any questions that have not been addressed, then that are burning questions that you have, they're not covered by the subjects that we've covered, you're welcome at the end to bring those questions up as well. Okay? So we're gonna move into, like I said, resilience, climate change, and sustainability. Representative Harris, what are your thoughts on the current impacts of climate change in Orange County, and how would you address these challenges as a state representative in District 44?
Well, I remember we moved into Orange County in 2002. We experienced our first hurricane in 2004. We experienced a series of hurricanes, and people who were here at that time, I mean, we were told at the time, like, things like this don't normally happen. This is like once every 20 or 30 years. And since then, we have seen so many hurricanes. And so I think even inland, we're getting impacted with things like flooding. Flooding is not normally something we see this far inland, but I think not last year, but the year before in 2022 with Ian, neighborhoods were completely underwater. BBL and Orla Vista are two neighborhoods I can think of off the top of my head. So as part of the IRA, the Inflation Rescue Act, there are actually funds set aside to help with some resiliency issues. Because climate change is real, and I don't think that should be a radical thing to say. It is just a fact. We are dealing with stronger storms. There is a history-making storm right now bombarding Jamaica. It is the strongest hurricane this time of year, and we have to face those facts. We have to figure out ways to move through this, whatever side of the aisle you're on, because this is going to impact all of us. It's not like, well, if I believe this, it's not going to impact me. It's going to impact you. You can't put your head in the sand. So the Inflation Reduction Act has funds set aside for things like the Go Solar Now, or Solar for Everyone, sorry. And they're going to be coming in with some programs to help people put solar on their rooftops if they're and these are for low income people that want to get solar but maybe can't afford the solar. So the president has invested funds into climate change and resiliency And so it's up to us for the states, and as an elected official on the state level, while, like I said before, while I can't pull state funding down, I can definitely lean on the good relationships that I have with our local Congress people and think of creative ways that we can take that federal funding and how we can use it to help these local communities, especially considering that the governor just vetoed so much funding for flood mitigation. And the day that he did it, South Florida was being flooded. So we're really leaning on unfortunately, our federal partners in the meantime.
Well, we're grateful to have you there fighting the fight on this issue. Are there any questions around climate change for Representative Harris from the crowd, from the audience? All right. Our next set of questions is around civic engagement and voter registration. Representative Harris, the governor has implemented and the legislature has implemented significant hurdles on voter participation, from vote by mail limitations, making it so that people have to sign up every single year in order to receive their ballots in the mail, to specifically things that affect organizations like Alianza that does voter registration, in terms of putting huge fines on small, tiny errors that the voter themselves could make on their voter form, and then fining the organizations $500 dollars per incident. It's like something so simple that's not even an error of the organization, it's an error of the voter, which it's confusing. People don't know, but in the three county corner of Osceola County, Polk County, and Orange County, in the Davenport area, there's a lot of places in all of those three counties that their named city, their address says Davenport. It says Davenport, and a lot of them are Puerto Rican. And this law that was passed, 7050, more than 60% of all of the people that were impacted in these voter registration forms were Puerto Rican. I know that because we sued the state on this, and we saw that huge numbers of these voters were Puerto Rican voters in the Central Florida, in the Orlando metro area. And so it seems to me that that's like selective enforcement, and that these laws are really being set up to enforce selectively on certain groups of people who might be voting in certain ways. And Rita, what could you say about that, and what can we do in order to challenge that and somehow revert some of these really damaging, undemocratic laws?
Yeah, no, you said it. They are undemocratic. I mean, voting is the foundation to our country. It's supposed to be one person, one vote, and we should be empowering people to vote. We should be making it as easy as possible for people to vote, not making it more difficult. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that these laws are impacting certain people who vote a certain way. It's very, very clear that they want to make it as difficult for people who might not vote for them to vote. Therefore, giving them an easier pathway to victory. I think what you're doing, lawsuits are great. And I think that it's good because it holds them accountable, not just in the state, but federally, so that other states can see what's going on here and what we're having to deal with here in the state. We have to use our taxpayer money to basically hold our governor to account. But also, I have found creative ways to get people to vote by mail by, having them go on the, putting a QR code on everything and having them do it through their phone. So they're doing it, and there's not a third party person. And it's unfortunate that we're in that situation where we have to do that, but that's what a lot of orgs like yourself have had to do, is kind of step away from it themselves and kind of put it onto the voter to say, okay, scan this code or go to this link, click on this. And we shouldn't have to do that, but it is where we are right now. And it's really important that we keep filing legislation. Last session, one of my colleagues, whom I admire, Representative LaVon Bracy Davis, she filed a comprehensive voting rights bill. And I think even if we know it's not going to get passed, we still have to file these bills to show people, to show the community what it is that we are continuing to fight for, and the type of Florida that we feel we can have and that we deserve. We all deserve a better Florida. Doesn't matter who you are. You deserve a better Florida. And I think we continue to show that even if they're not going to pass, we have to file these bills and we have to fight for these values.
So I just want to recognize that Samuel Vilches, one of our board members, walked into the room, and he's here with us tonight. And formerly we were announcing that Wes Hodge was with us, but he wasn't. But now he is. So a big round of applause to Wes. He's a candidate for supervisor of election. And then we're gonna. Are there any other questions around civic? And yes, Carmen, and then Marisa. Okay, that is a different law. That is a newer law that went into effect this year, and is one of the reasons why we at Alianza stopped doing voter registration. The fines were $500, and now they've been multiplied. Every year they multiply and make the fines bigger. My goodness, as if making a mistake on your voter registration form, of our forms. Less than 0.01% of the forms had mistakes on them. Less than 0.01%. If I was a baseball player, I'd be batting 999. I'd be better than Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they pick on that 0.01% of errors, which most of the time are errors that the voters make, to then penalize and fine us. But we got a few fines of those $500 fines, and now they're going up to $50,000, and they're fining and making some of the mistakes even they're felonies. They're actually define some of these penalties as felonies, and so a voter registration canvasser could be charged with a felony if they make a certain mistake. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but these are ridiculous laws. I mean, for a traffic light where you could kill somebody, right? If you run a red light, right, you get $200 in Osceola County, right? Or I don't know how much it is here in Orange County. I got one of those in Osceola County. That's how I know it's $200. But Samuel, you know how much it is? You got one in Orange County? You have a question? Okay, so $50,000. Samuel, and then Marisa.
Hi, thank you so much, Representative, for being here. I actually have a question around civic engagement and engaging the Latino community. And this is taking my Democratic Party hat off. But here especially here in Central Florida, we have an issue in which Latinos have a lower propensity to vote. And that then means campaigns, and particularly, honestly, the Democratic Party don't necessarily target them and engage them because they're less likely to vote. And that becomes a cyclical problem, right? Because you don't get targeted, so then nobody's talking to you about the election and saying you don't vote. And then people say, well, see, it didn't make sense to target them because they're not voting. So in your position, how have you been able to engage the Latino community to get votes out, but also just in general, get people informed?
Yeah, I have gone to, in addition to just being involved with Alianza, I make sure that I knock doors in those neighborhoods aggressively. And I've been knocking doors since for a year and a half. And so I really focus on those communities, not only for voter engagement, but also because I want them to know how to get a hold of me. We don't have a lot of constituent people, issues coming in, because people aren't used to having someone that they can actually contact and get a resolution from. So going into these neighborhoods is twofold. It's letting them know, I'm your elected official, I'm running for re-election, I would like to have your vote, I want you to know who I am, I want to hear what is on your mind, and particularly if you're part of the Latino community, I want to know how you feel about the things that you're being impacted by from being part of a marginalized community. But also, I want you to know how to get a hold of me because I'm your elected official. And if you have a problem, I want you to be able to call my office, email my office, because there are resources out there that can help people, and they don't know that they're there because, it's overwhelming. If you Google, help with rent, all these links are going to show up. You don't know where to begin, and people just walk away. So that is what I've been doing, and I've been really leaning on my community. I have an amazing community of friends who are Suzanne and Maritza and Carmen and and really listening to them about what they feel the community needs and would like to see, and just really always listening to people about what it is that they want, what they want from their elected officials. And I hope to see more engagement this election night, because I really have done a lot of door knocking in those communities, because I want them to know who I am, and I want them to know that they can vote, and that these elections are coming up and their voice is really important.
Thank you, Rep. Harris. The microphone up here to the front to Maritza.
Need your voice.
Hello, my name is Marissa Frost, and I don't have a question, but I have a comment. This afternoon, my husband came to me and said, he told me in the computer, said, why don't you check to see the status of your voting, ballot or whatever, or your right to vote or whatever, your registration. And I found out, I put all my credentials, absolutely everything. I make sure that I looked at my driver's license and make sure the numbers were right. I have to check. They say that I'm not eligible to vote. So every single person, I encourage you, please check in the computer, because when you get to the precinct, your number might not be there. You might not be able to vote, thinking that you can.
Yeah, this has been a problem. If I
No,
may.
go ahead.
Well, actually, you answer first, and then I'll make my comment.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's why I've also encouraged other other candidates to put QR codes on their literature that lead people to the elections website, so they can check their registration, because people have been being purged. They have, we are hearing stories like yours where people are like, I voted in the last election. There's no reason why I should be purged, but they are finding that they're not. So.
And this is a problem that's been going back to when Rick Scott was the governor. Every time that they purged the list, and they purged hundreds of thousands of people, they would blame illegal immigrants. That's the word that they used to say that the reason they were purging. That there's never been proven that a single undocumented person has ever registered to vote in the state of Florida. They never bring an exact proof. But hundreds of thousands of people are being purged from the list. And guess what? Many of them are Hispanic. And that not only that they're being purged, but it creates this idea that any person who has a Spanish name should be suspected of not being able to vote. And that is a problem. That is a serious problem. But they do it on purpose, and they do it with all these other laws like 750, in order to make sure that Hispanic voters cannot vote, and other voters in the state of Florida that would be perfectly eligible to vote cannot vote. So again, like Maritza said, and like Rep. Harris said, let's check those voter registrations, make sure that you're registered to vote, that you're in the right, correct address, that there's no excuse that anybody can use to keep you from voting, and do it early. Do it now.
Do it today.
Do it now.
Right now.
Yes. Thank you, Maritza. Yes.
To add, sorry.
Well,
Just to-
the microphone, we all know that everybody has great voices here, but the microphone is important because we're streaming live, and if you have the microphone, then people who are watching at home can hear your question.
Okay, so just to add to what Maritza said, the beginning of 2024, I kept calling the supervisor of elections just to make sure they couldn't find my name. And I kept calling, and I checked the website a couple of times. Then finally the lady said, yeah, we found you. And they found my husband. So I had to call. I think we have to be proactive, and we have to call them and call them. Yeah.
Yeah, and with what happened yesterday, it's so important that everybody goes out to vote, right? This country is headed in a really, really dangerous direction, and it's really, really important that all of us go out and vote. There's no excuse. It's urgent. It's very necessary. So thank you for those questions. Microphone.
He's giving you.
Diana, they're very active questions. This is a hot topic.
Getting your steps in.
Civic engagement, a hot topic.
Thank you. So my question to you is, because like my name is, so in Puerto Rico and most of the Latin countries, we have a mother, right? So I found out with me, I have Liza Minelli Pacheco Santana, right? I have to put it as legally as it is on my birth certificate. So what happened with me was they had me under Liza Santana instead of Liza Minelli. So what do you suggest for us to do?
You should put your full name on there, and that's your legal name, and you should get your ID and the driver just like the driver's license, and make sure that they see that your voter registration card, your driver's license, and every the form of proof that you have in order to prove your identity and your
Yeah, they
name.
were telling me that you can only fit a certain amount of letters in the, that
Well,
was
then-
their excuse.
So if that's their excuse, then don't keep me from voting. Here's my names, right? And listen, there's a lot of people who want to stop you from voting, and it's really important that you insist and you insist and insist and insist. Don't take no for an answer, because that's what they do. They try to discourage people from actually voting, and then your vote is not counted. So insist on voting, and if they, for some reason, you cannot get them to get you your ballot with your name on it, vote on a provisional ballot. It's not the best, but it's better than nothing. All right, so we're gonna move. Another question, okay.
Actually, it's not a question, it's just a comment. For those of you who have sealed addresses, like for me, law enforcement, you need to be extra careful, because you can't just call and say, hey, can you check my ID, make sure that I'm registered to vote. So I literally had to go into my SOE's office in Brevard County, because that's where I'm from, Brevard County, and check to make sure that everything was up to date. And it was not up to date. And so when I sign a petition for the candidates, it's always an issue because it's sealed. And I'm sure the representative knows the issues when it's somebody signing a petition that is sealed. It's very difficult to get those approved.
Yeah.
And to just comment on what this lady said here, it brought to my mind that if someone says to you, there's too many letters, your name has too many letters and it can't fit on there, always ask them, what is your regulation? What is the guidance that says you can only have a certain number of letters? Show me where that's a law or a policy or whatever. And you'd be amazed at how many people say, they've made it up on the spot.
Yeah.
And they can't enforce it, and they can't support it.
Great point. Again, insist, fight. Don't take no for an answer when it comes to voting. Check early. Check tomorrow on the websites. Check tomorrow. If your name is not there, go to the supervisor of elections. Complain. Make a big deal about it, because this is happening in this state, and it's a way to limit the voting power of our community.
Thank you, Martha.
One more question on this subject. Over here to the gentleman.
Si alguien me pudiera traducir en inglés, ok. Yo soy cubano, llevo poco tiempo acá, todavía no soy ciudadano. Y lo que quiero decir es que el voto es muy importante, porque ¿qué no quisiera yo por poder votar? Y el voto es decisivo, sobre todo cuando en la elección del 2020 vemos que el senador que estaba perdió por 35 votos contra una republicana. Quiere decir que el voto es muy importante, y muchas personas piensan que no votar pues no hace nada, y un voto es un cambio. Muchas personas han perdido por pocos votos, y entonces yo exhorto a las personas que si tienen ese deber cívico de derecho de poder votar, pues que ejerzan su voto, porque estamos en unos tiempos muy difíciles donde la democracia está en juego, y debemos seguir preservando este país que es tan grandioso y que nos da oportunidades a todos.
So basically what Jose said, he's from Cuba. He's been here for 1 year, and he would love to have that privilege to vote. So he's exhorted everybody to go out and vote, because there was a candidate that lost because of 35 votes. And it's a very great privilege because of all the times that we're going right now. So, and basically what he's trying to tell everybody, go out and vote. That way we can make the change and make them good.
So that's a really important point, and coming from someone from Cuba, where you don't have the right to vote, and now you're here looking at what's happening with our democracy in the United States. You come to United States seeking a better life, seeking the democracy and the liberty and the freedom that this country promises to every immigrant, to every person that's come to its shores. And you're gonna find out that pretty soon you might not have that right, right? So it's very important to vote. One last question on this
Just one
subject.
quick thing.
Yes.
Thank you, Marco. And on this voting, it says, if we want to clear this up, of course, check now, but if we want to clear this up in the future, vote for West Hodge.
Well, we're not supposed to be making endorsements tonight.
Well,
All right. So
it's a
we,
suggestion.
I will address the jury not to take that evidence into account.
Don't do that.
Okay, so moving on. We're now going to talk about education, technology, and the arts, culture. This is an important thing for us. We come from different places, from different countries, Hispanic community, African American community. We all come from very diverse backgrounds, and who we are is important. Where we come from is important. Where we are now is important, and making sure that we can come together and share those things in celebration is very, very important. Recently, Governor DeSantis struck millions of dollars out of the Florida legislature's approved budget for arts and culture. Millions of dollars were cut from the budget. Do you support these types of cuts? Why or why not? Please also reflect on the situation with the state interfering with school districts regarding book bans and such, really silly situations in the school libraries.
I absolutely do not support these budget cuts. I am a theater kid. I went to a performing arts high school, and it got me through high school. I'll be really honest with you. I had a tough childhood, and it had it not been for theater, I don't know if I would have graduated from high school. Not only that, but it taught me so many skills. Like, when you're in high school, you find little pathways. You either get into sports, you get into academic triathlon, or, the math club or whatever. I was in the theater club. And I learned so many skills that still help me to this day. And so I feel like it's so short-sighted. You're taking away, an education should be well-rounded, right? It should include science and the arts because they complement each other so beautifully. And you really said it when you said that, like, we're all from different places, and that's one way that we can communicate, right? Art doesn't have a language barrier. It's just, you see it, it's beautiful, it's meaningful, and to see art from all over the world is incredibly impactful. So I'm upset and frustrated to see that happening. Of course, I do not support the book bans. Before I was elected, I was often with Mr. Hodge. We would go to the school board meetings and we would advocate, and Judy Hayes, I remember her, we would go into these meetings and we would ask them to please not do this. They have a saying that when you're reading a book or you're looking at art, you either see a window or a mirror, right? You either are learning about somebody else's experiences, or you're seeing your own represented and reflected back to you. And it's incredibly powerful, especially for kids especially like in the junior high and the high school age group, where they're really struggling a lot with a lot of just the emotions of getting older, and, things are changing. And so books can really be a way to kind of, they can kind of wrap themselves in and learn about life's experiences without experiencing them firsthand. And so when you see books like Shakespeare being banned, you really have to question what is happening here. And I think there was one person in Alaska who didn't even live in Florida who was able to ban, 400, 500 books. One person who doesn't even live in the state was able to ban books. And that's an issue. We should be uplifting our teachers who are experts. They know what they're doing. They're professionals, and our media specialists, they know what they're doing, and we should trust in them.
That's a really interesting point, and it makes me think about so many things that the politicians in a certain party in Tallahassee are doing that are basically, they're pretending they're not doctors to be saying to be legislating what people should be doing with their bodies or how to treat their bodies. They're not teachers to be telling teachers what to teach in the classroom and what not to teach in the classroom. Those teachers, many of them are doctors, many of them have master's degrees, and all of them have bachelor's degrees. So all of them have been trained in education to know what to teach and how to teach. And to think that someone who is not an educator can make decisions in the classroom, that's called, in my opinion, micromanagement. Micromanagement, like legislative micromanagement.
It is, and it's really frustrating because right now we have a shortage in the schools of teachers, and it's driving people out of the state because they don't want to teach. I have a very good friend who's an excellent teacher. He was an excellent English teacher in high school, and he literally he's not a teacher anymore because of all the threats to his livelihood. Trying to navigate these very sort of murky, vaguely written laws. And would I be held? Would I lose my ability to teach in the future if a parent complains? And so rather than deal with all of it and not get paid, he quit and he's working a different job where he makes about the same as he would being a teacher, but he doesn't have to deal with all of the stress. And that's what's happening in the state. We're losing teachers, we're losing doctors because of all of these laws. Not only are they very restrictive, they're very murky, and people have a hard time, navigating it. So rather than jump into it and get in trouble, they just over restrict themselves and say, okay, well, I'm just gonna do the most restrictive thing possible so that I don't accidentally break this law and I don't lose my livelihood. And especially when you think of the money that people put into getting their degree in education and getting a degree in medical degree. Like, do you want to lose your livelihood and still be on the hook for all that debt? Like, that's not an option for a lot of people. And so we are experiencing brain drain, very much so in this state.
Teachers are leaving the state?
Teachers are leaving the state. Doctors are leaving the state. It is happening.
Farm workers are leaving the
Yes,
state.
farm workers are leaving the state because of the awful bill that was passed. It was not only it was harmful, it was ugly. And I don't know if you heard the debate on the floor when that bill was passed, but the debate was ugly. It blamed people who moved to this country to make a better life for themselves for almost every problem. That you stubbed your toe almost and it would be like, well, it's because someone moved here. And we're dealing with people who are, I'm speaking to the choir, but people who are refugees from climate change in some cases. We're dealing with climate migrants. We're dealing with people who are escaping horrible situations. And to blame a community for every bad thing that happens in a state really puts a target on people's backs. And that was like the cherry on the top of the cake, that law. It just really put a target on their back to say, we don't even want you to do this anymore. Just go away.
So we're about an hour into our candidate forum tonight, and former Representative Daisy Morales is not here. Is it okay if I drink her water? Okay. I got it right here. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
A quick question on the funding for the arts, the millions for the arts that was cut. Where did it go? What other program did our wise Republican leaders, where did they send it?
Yeah.
Do you know?
No, they just cut it. They just vetoed it. It's going to be put
They
probably in the general
So
funding.
it's in some kind of general fund now. It's
Yeah.
not-
We have the lowest debt. That's the frustrating thing too, because I think it's one in every $4 that we have in the state is their federal dollars, and so this money is kind of hoarded into a place that's not being used for some of the programs that it could be used for, and that was one of the programs. So it's just going to sit in the general fund and not be used, and it should be used on arts and culture.
That's one of them.
And flood mitigation, and a lot of
Homeless.
yes.
It was somewhere around $250 million.
Yeah.
For the yeah.
Hi, I think everybody knows me.
We all know each other in this room.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait,
a little
hold on. Before you start, in the front row, my goodness, another board member from Alianza, Susan Peña.
Anyway, but I'm going to take my Alianza hat off and I'm going to talk as an educator that everybody I think knows that I've been an educator for over 20 years. Former OCPS and New York City Public School teacher as well. And one thing that I just wanted to kind of bring or highlight, or for you to bring to attention and awareness to people, the whole issue of clergy, or the lack of separation of church and state in our classrooms. It does concern me as a parent. Right? I have a 5-year-old. He's an OCPS student. And it does concern me because I have no idea who Joe Schmo, right, is going to be authorized now to be counseling my child when I don't know who you are. And but having that authority now that anybody can be deemed, clergy and is authorized to be in the classroom is concerning. And if we start looking at other states now, like currently Oklahoma in the last few weeks just passed that the 10 Commandments is now a required subject in the classrooms in public schools in Oklahoma. Which is actually the state that I was born in. So it's a bit concerning, and I'm not saying whether, if that is something that you want your child to have, that's perfectly fine. But I think about students of mine, students that come from other religious backgrounds, students that are atheists, students that, are not practicing. What about them? Right? We're putting things on them that is not for them. And so I'm concerned. Can you just please talk a little bit about that? And how do you see your advocacy? And I'm going to assume, right? But you know what they say, but I'm going to assume that you're against this. How do you see your advocacy towards this?
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for your service being an educator. I know how dedicated you are. That was an issue that came up last session, a bill that passed that allows chaplains in school. And it concerned me because for the very reasons you brought up. We have a very diverse community, and diversity looks like a lot of different things, and that includes religious diversity. And we don't want, students to feel like they are being forced to take on a religion. And also, I'm going to get a little sassy here. I'm sorry. I try not to get too sassy, but like for a legislature that talks so much about parental rights, where are the rights of the other parents that don't want their kids to learn this stuff or don't feel like it is pertinent to their upbringing? Like they have the right to raise their child in the religious upbringing or lack of that they want to. And instead of putting chaplains in school, we need to have resources for counseling because our kids are dealing with a lot. It's not just a pandemic, it's a lot of things. It's social media and it's peer pressure and it's their families are dealing with financial stress and they're feeling that too because kids understand what's going on in the household even when their parents try to whisper quietly in the bedroom at night. And so what they need is access to healthcare and resources they don't need. And this isn't a to bash any one religion, or it's just that those are personal and private, and that's something that parents can take their children to outside of government school hours. When you're in school, you should not be having to learn, or have a chaplain. If you're having an emotional issue, you should have a counselor who's professional at what they do.
Yeah, the country was founded, one of the basic principles on religious freedom. And that means you're free to practice whatever religion you like, not only one religion or no religion, right? So it's really something that is of that family or of that individual's choice. And we celebrate those choices in America, right? We celebrate having the freedom to be able to choose one thing or another. Let's move on to another subject, and that's the economy. We would like to know, Rep. Harris, what is your economic plan for House District 44? What are some of the existing programs that you will support, and what are ones that you think you could bring to strengthen opportunities for local residents here in District 44 so that they can gain better opportunities for employment and live a better quality of life?
So District 44 is not just diverse in the community, it's also diverse in the way the district looks. And we have areas that are very industrial. And so I think, trying to encourage there's a few manufacturers that might be interested in putting a plant where they make solar panels and solar, the what are they called? The accoutrements of putting the solar on your roof. And they're interested in House District 44. So I would definitely try to support something like that coming into the district. Trying to diversify our job market, I think, is really, really important. I think it really helps when there's a lot of different types of industries in a space, because it's not just tourism and it's not just agriculture, it's technology. So I think supporting these type of initiatives are really important to me. And of course, making sure that, like I said before, the support systems, the wraparound systems that do help when people are struggling are also supported as much as they can be supported, so that if people are falling in the gaps, there's access to help when they need it.
Thank you, Rep. Harris. I want to address the thing of the water. It's really good water. But I want everyone to know that if former Representative Morales were to arrive here, we have more water, and we would share it with her too. And we can joke about it, but we had a wonderful debate last week with 4 candidates. All the 4 candidates that were running for District 47 showed up, and including a Republican. And we are known at Alianza for being fair to all candidates, regardless of what party that they belong to, regardless of what our individual opinions might be. We're fair to everybody, and we don't side with one side or the other. But this Alianza is one of the primary organizations in the Latino community. We do these forums every week. Sometimes we do 2 of these forums a week. We're constantly in the community. We have a day camp. We do after-school programs. We're constantly working out there in the community, and we expect and we hope that candidates come to our forums. And when they do, they're always treated with a lot of respect. So I don't want to be light about the water, and we say little things like that, but they didn't show up. They didn't show up, and it's important to point that they didn't show up. They had committed that they were going to be here to one of our staff people, and they just didn't show up. There might have been a good reason for that too. We don't know, right? We don't know if there was a good reason. So we don't want to make light of the jokes, and I want to be really serious about that, and know that we respect every single candidate, regardless of what their stand, what their opinions. In a democracy, anyone has a right to vote. Everyone has a right to run for office. Everyone, no matter who you are, the color of your skin, your gender, what you like, what you don't like, you have the right to participate. So that is a right that we respect tremendously. And we can make a joke because we didn't like that we don't like when a candidate doesn't show up. But we do respect every single candidate. And I just want to make that point very, very clear. It's in this organization, we're always going to allow people, as long as they're truthful and they're saying the truth. If they make something that is not factual, a false claim, then you're opening yourself up for us to check the facts and call you on it. But as long as you're being factual, and as long as you're being respectful of each other in the candidates, we are going to also be respectful, and we're also going to treat you with that right that you have as a candidate to run for office. So having said that, I want to move on to another subject, which is a very hot subject in the state of Florida and many other states. 2 years ago, the Supreme Court struck down what was the law for 50 years, and that is that women who needed an abortion would have the right to seek that with consultation of their family, obviously, the important people in their lives, and their doctors, right? People who know about medicine and know what people need. And 2 years ago, the Supreme Court eliminated this law, and now in the state of Florida, we have a 6-week ban on abortions that everyone knows that is a very short time for you to even know if, that you are pregnant if you're a woman, or your partner if it's a woman is pregnant. So What is your position on Amendment 4, and how would you talk to voters about the importance of voting one way or the other on this bill?
Well,
I'm sorry, this amendment.
Amendment, yeah, no, vote yes on Amendment 4. And vote yes on Amendment 4. And everybody should vote yes on Amendment 4. You know, I am at the doors sometimes with people who are NPAs because they can vote for me. And this subject sometimes comes up. I can tell you people overwhelmingly do support Amendment 4. But even if they're kind of on the fence, I put it to them like this. I've heard several stories since the 6-week abortion ban was put into effect. And I debated passionately against it on the House floor. And I will continue to fight against we have the right to bodily autonomy, period, full stop. That's I will continue to. But you know, it's not just access to abortion. I have heard stories where you know, people were possibly experiencing a miscarriage and they were sent home and told these are the symptoms of sepsis. I can't do anything because, again, kind of referring back to these laws are murky. They're hard to understand. Doctors are not lawyers. Some even lawyers have a hard time deciphering what some of the language means and how it can be interpreted. So rather than lose their livelihood, rather than get into trouble, they send a patient home with a list of, this is, if you're experiencing sepsis, then you can come back and then I can perform, you know. And these are people who are, in a lot of cases, wanting to be pregnant. So you have an emotional person who's dealing with a possible miscarriage. And then you're telling a family, go home and wait till your loved one is near death, and then I can help them. Because they can't practice their medicine. They can't be doctors. And I spoke to one doctor who has a license to practice in Maryland and here. And he said the difference in practicing in Maryland is night and day, because if a patient comes to him and needs healthcare, he gives it to them. Here, there's so many hoops. And then on the other side of it, when people when someone goes in to give birth, we don't have enough doctors because we're losing them. So I had a friend whose daughter was having a baby and she was set to be induced, and they said, go home. We don't have any room for her right now. She had an appointment to be induced, showed up. No, we don't have a doctor for you right now. Go home and we'll call you when we have an opening. I myself, when I go to make my yearly, normally I can see my doctor in like a month. I can't get a doctor's appointment until November, December, because my doctor, who's an OBGYN, is overrun with patients because people are leaving the state. So now people are seeking and going to other doctors. So this 6-week abortion ban isn't just, it is about the right to have an abortion if you want one, which you should have the right to have an abortion if you want one. But it is also about the right to not die. It is about the right to not die, to be able to go to a doctor and have your life saved if it needs to be saved. And any one of us should be able to walk into a doctor's office and have a doctor treat us and save our life and not have to wonder, am I going to be sued? Am I going to lose my license? Am I going to go to jail if I treat this patient in front of me? Period. Sorry, I get a little fired up. That's my...
You know, I haven't told this story to anyone, but I'm gonna say it tonight because it is really it's a serious thing. Last summer, my daughter was visiting from Chicago here in Florida, and she had a miscarriage, and she started to bleed, and she was very scared, right? And she called me. I was not at the. She was staying at my sister's house, so she called me with the situation, and I drove her to the hospital, and she sat in the hospital. We sat in the hospital, and she was bleeding out for about 6 hours or 8 hours in the bed, and it was pools of blood. It was very traumatic to me. It was very much more traumatic to her. She was shaking. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the doctors, because she wouldn't stop bleeding, decided that she needed to be helped, right? Mm-hmm. And they went in and conducted the procedures that everyone knows what it is, right? The baby wasn't gonna survive, okay? And that is a very private thing, it's a very personal thing, but it happens. It happens. It's happened to my daughter, and I was there with her in the hospital holding her hand through that situation. And I wonder if that happened this summer, if that would be able, if they would be able, I mean, what would happen to her this summer? Would the doctors be able to save her, right? Or would they just let her, send her home and say, well, take a pill, take an aspirin or whatever? It's a real serious thing, and this has gone way, way out of hand. So we're gonna move to a different topic that also is a problem, and that is the topic of gun violence. Gun violence today is the #1 killer of young people in this country. It didn't used to be, but it's become that. We've all heard of mass shootings. We've all heard about the lapsing of laws here in the state of Florida in every legislative cycle. What are your thoughts on gun violence prevention, and what can the legislature do, and what can you in the minority do to ensure that District 44 is as safe as it can be from gun violence, femicide, and mass shootings?
Yeah, it's an epidemic, is what it is. And we should be discussing, gun violence and banning and keeping guns out of schools rather than books. I work very closely with a lot of organizations that, do advocacy around gun violence, and Moms Demand Action is one of my favorites, because of the fact that not only do they advocate for policy change, but they also advocate for common sense safety things that people can do at home. They don't need the approval of the state legislature, because obviously we have a state legislature that was trying to roll back the changes that were made after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, that tragedy that happened. So, we're in that predicament. So organizations like that are amazing. They're giving out, safety, so that, gut locks, so that the guns are locked, and trying to advocate about how to keep you safe at home. I think is, right now what I have been really supporting in my district, and really getting the word out that if you're a responsible gun owner, then there's options for you to make sure that your children don't get their hands on your gun, and you should do everything that you can and to make sure that doesn't happen.
And following up on that, what is your stance on military grade weapons?
I don't see why they're needed. I don't see that they're a public safety concern. I don't understand. I know a lot of law enforcement that are against it as well, because they are dealing with it as well out in the streets. I don't see why that is needed, why a civilian should have their hands on that type of weaponry.
Thank you. Any questions on this subject from the audience?
Thank you. Should teachers be armed? Because we had a conversation on Friday. One of the ladies that attended your event, I think she's a counselor at Celebration High School, and she's very much afraid to carry a gun. Can they do anything in Tallahassee? I know you work very hard.
Yeah.
And it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah, every year, Representative Dan Daly files a bill because he represents, the area that Parkland is in, and, it never gets heard. But I don't think teachers, I think there should be no guns in school, not guns in school. So I'm not for arming teachers. And I think it creates a situation as well. If there was an incident, it becomes very if I'm a law enforcement walking into a situation like that, now there's several people with guns, what is going on?
Yeah.
I feel like that's also a safety issue. If something was to happen and someone is trying to come in, now there was more people with guns, it's just going to create more confusion.
So teachers shouldn't carry guns.
No, I think that we should try to keep guns out of schools as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. And with this question, that was the last question from Alianza. Is there any questions from the public that we would like to take? Are there any questions that are coming in through online on the Facebook or on YouTube? Yes. Isabel.
Hi. as I mentioned before, I am from Brevard County.
Mhm.
I'm also running for mayor of Palm Bay.
Oh,
And I just
nice.
wanted to reiterate what I've been telling in my community all along. I think with law enforcement in particular, we need to make sure that our police officers get trained a little bit longer than 6 months and get put on the field. My brother served this country as a Marine and was a police officer for over 27 years. And my brother committed suicide by gun in his home. Now, it's very difficult, like you, it's a personal thing, it's very difficult to say. But when I make the statement that our law enforcement needs to get additional training, it's because we have these kids that are coming out of a police academy, fresh out of high school, that are not even old enough to sometimes carry a weapon, going into the police department and cocky and, their false sense of empowerment. And I think as a state representative, it's important for you to bring to the floor the situation of the lack of training that our police officers have. In my particular community, we are seeing such an increase of violence, police activity that wasn't there before. And I believe it's because we are hiring people that are not trained properly in order to be there. We had an incident with a gentleman with a gun. Instead of waiting for backup, these officers with no training went in there all nilly-willy, and 2 people died. And it was a situation where they might have died either way, but I think that the lack of training, it's important to bring to the attention at your level to say, hey, we need to look at this. FDLE is not supposed to be allowing these people to be our guardians in our city. Just like here in Orange County and Miami and California, I think that training needs to go beyond 6 months of police academy and then whatever time they get training while on the road. So is that something that you would be open to bring on your next cycle once you get reelected?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a very good conversation to have, and I appreciate you bringing that insight, and bringing it to our attention. And you have my number, so it's something that we can definitely have a conversation about. I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
It's boring. A very boring question. But I recently bought an electric car, and now I can't help but notice that we do not have a lot of electric chargers. And it's the future, and everybody's going to be driving an electric car someday. But we have to fight against the governor who's scared of electric cars.
Yeah.
Like he's scared of electric stoves and lab-grown meat and all of these things. Is there anything that we can do? I know that Osceola County, for example, Osceola County Schools had obtained a grant through the federal government to electrify their school bus fleet.
Yeah,
Are there
yeah.
things that we can do to kind of circumvent our Philistine governor?
Yes.
To get that to the people as electric vehicles become more affordable? Can we get those power sources? They should be at every Publix and Target so that you can charge while you're shopping.
Yeah, so that I think there are projects in the works coming through the infrastructure money, and there's also an experimental road that was put in, I believe, in Lake County
That charges. the
that
cars,
charges
yeah.
while you're driving on it, and so they're really interested to see like what comes of that and if it's something that's feasible. That's something that they might consider doing. But there's definitely, I do know that electrification and charging stations and getting the super fast charging stations is all part of the infrastructure money. And so I think that we're going to be seeing some more, charging stations put in.
Thank you.
I know, I have a big mouth. Anyway, so we're sitting here at the Iron Workers Union building, right? And I'm a proud union member, have been since I first started in New York City Public Schools, proud to be part of the UFT. Then when I came down here to Orlando and worked in OCPS, I was a proud CTA member, and I'm still proud teachers union member nationwide. How can we advocate to make our unions stronger? We see how our teachers unions, how other unions are basically being dismantled piece by piece. Now you have to have 60%, if I'm not mistaken, in order for them to keep being afloat.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't understand, being part of the union is not is something that is at the mere fabric of what it is to be the United States, right? And so, what are you doing to advocate for stronger unions?
Yeah, well, I fought against all the all the union busting bills, on the floor. I spoke up about it. But I've worked with our local unions, whether it is, writing letters of support when they've asked me to, putting my name on their pillars, allowing them to, endorsing their pillars, uplifting any of their meetings, any events. If they send me an event, I will send it to my list and make sure that people know about it. And even today, we were kind of educating people about the fact that the ironworkers have an apprentice program. A lot of unions have an apprentice program, and I think it's really important that young people, especially when they're kind of weighing their options for their future, if they say, well, maybe I don't want to go to college right now, or maybe I want to go to college, but I want to learn a skill too, because it's really useful to know skills. They're really tangible, right? That we let people know that, hey, they can come here, they can go through an apprenticeship and get a job. So really just uplifting that. I was happy to be on the picket line with you and our littlest Dominic out there with his signs and everything. So just being an ally the best I can, and when they call on me, doing what it is that they need me to do, and I will continue to do that. I've been endorsed by the AFL-CIO, and I'm very proud of that endorsement. I come from a long line of union people myself, New York, IBEW, Local 3, yeah.
So with that, let's call Christian Rodriguez up here again and give him a round of applause, because we're in his home, his house of labor. And so Christian, give us just one more little brief summary of what it is that this union does for the young people and for workers in the region. Maybe a little bit of your own story. There you go. That's the most interesting.
The easiest one I can actually talk about is mine. 2019, I moved to Florida. Did not know anything about unions, to be quite honest. I come from from Rhode Island, which is really pro-union. Came down here, thought that I was just gonna come out to work. Got accepted by the ironworkers local. 808, especially Orlando, which I'm very proud of. I wear it really big on my sleeve. Did a 4-year program. I finished it in 3, thank goodness.
Nice.
A little bit of background with my, all my past experiences. Graduated just last year, 2023. That's my topping out, which is a big thing for us. Topping out is more of what I spoke to you earlier about. It's a ceremonial. For our buildings, any building that you do see that is structurally with structural steel, we do a topping out. So our ceremonial in our tradition is that the last piece is our ceremony in completing the building. So that is like our topping out. So that's what we call it. So I topped out last year with all of my brothers. So as a union, we're all brothers and sisters, and that's how we were able to do it.
So thank you, and we're very grateful for you having us here in your union home. And this probably won't be the first, the last.
Hopefully not.
It's the first, but it won't be the last.
There you go.
Right? There we go. I got it right. Huh? We should do we were talking about that earlier.
All right, I
Yeah.
love it.
It's a great idea. We haven't done a First Friday with labor, and that's an important sector in our community. So we should definitely do it. All right. So with that, we're gonna close tonight. Thank you again for lending us this hall, this beautiful hall. And Rita, closing statements for the participants here and those who are watching at home.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone again. I want to thank you, Alianza, for this opportunity, and also for creating such an incredible community. And I've said this before to you and to many of your board members, but it really has become one of my favorite events to go to, First Friday, and getting to know everybody. And I see so many constituents in the room, but you're also friends. So you're my friends and my constituents. And it has been, and I might get emotional, I'm so sorry. It has been such an honor to serve you for the last 2 years. It's an incredible community. It is full of so much love and so much talent. And I'll meet people and I'm just like, this is so amazing that I get to, be a part of your life. I enjoy helping people. And so my proudest moments have been able to help constituents when they have a problem. And so hopefully you'll send me back to Tallahassee to continue fighting and working for you. But regardless, I'm still going to be here and I'm still going to be working in this community. And I'm just really grateful to know you all and to have this family, this extended family. So thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will end tonight's candidate forum. I want to remind everyone that this Friday, we have our first Friday, which Rita was talking about. It's going to be a picnic at Ralph Chisholm Regional Park. It's at 4700 Chisholm Park Trail, and that is located in St. Cloud, right off Narcoossee Avenue. Also want to mention that our next candidate forum is on Monday the 8th, and we're going to be having the candidates for Senate in District 25. So Carmen Torres will be featured in that, along with Alan Grayson and other candidates in that race. We've invited them all. We know that some of them, it's hard. Running for office is super hard, and not all of them can make it because of commitments. But at least some people excuse themselves, right? Right? At least some people call in and say, I can't make it. Anyway, we would love to see you. Watch us on Facebook and on YouTube. If you cannot come to the forums in the future, on the 11th, we're in Osceola County again, and we're going to be doing the sheriff's race. We'll be back in Orlando to do District 46, 48. Joanna's 48, right?
43.
43. I'm sorry. Too many districts. District 43, we're going to be back here on the 18th for that one, 18th. And on the 25th, we're doing 46 back in Osceola County. We are also scheduling a forum with the candidates for mayor in Kissimmee, and there'll be others coming in August, some congressional races that we're going to also do forums on the congressional races, and those will be in August. So we want everyone to know that these are happening every week, sometimes twice a week. Everyone's invited, and we hope to see you all again in the near future. Thank you very much. Good night.